I'm framing these shots because this is my specialty. And when I need advice on writing, I call Ryan. So I feel like here's my opportunity to pay him back.
I just finished a 6-mile run and I got a text from my friend Casey Neistat, who I've known forever, and he asked if I wanted to go for a second run. And there's basically no one I love to go running with more in the world than Casey Neistat. In fact, other than Ritual, I really don't run with anyone. Running is a solitary, philosophical, meditative thing for me. But in honor of going on this run with Casey, who I met almost 10 years ago, we both gave a talk at a castle that Google had put on. We stayed in the castle. Everyone left, and then it was me, Casey, the director of the King's Speech, and a couple other people. Anyways, we all stayed in the castle and had this crazy experience together and became really fast friends as a result of it. Weirdly, I think I have learned more from Casey than just about anyone I've met in that 10-year period. I'm Ryan Holiday. I've written a bunch of books about Stoic philosophy. I'm a runner, as I was saying, but I also go around and give talks at places like that castle for Google and the NBA and the NFL, sitting senators, special forces operators. That's what I get to do for a living. But I'm also on this journey of becoming my best self, learning from people that I know. And so in today's episode, I wanted to give you a bunch of life lessons that I learned from my friend Casey Neistat that have made me a better person, a better writer, a better artist, a better creator, a YouTuber. It was Casey's idea to do this YouTube channel. So here is what I have learned from the one and only Casey Neistat. I remember once I was talking about some financial project with Casey, something I was getting paid to do. He said, you got to remember, Ryan, if we were motivated by money, we'd both work at ad agencies. And I think about that all the time. I didn't get into writing about an obscure school of ancient philosophy for the money. Of course not. That would be insane. I didn't get into publishing physical books in 2020 because money is what motivates me. So if money doesn't motivate me, I have to make sure that my individual choices, this project, this direction, whatever, that it's not motivated by money because I've already opted out of that race. I've already decided not to optimize for that variable. You know, Seneca says that slavery lurks beneath marble and gold, meaning that the richest people are often the least free because they have to think about making money. They have to think about maintaining their money. They're afraid of losing their money. They have to do certain things to be in the club that allows them to make the money that they do. And so when you opt out of that, it's not just freeing, but it's clarifying. Why do you do what you do? And if you've decided that it's not money, there's things that Casey could do to make a lot more money. There's things I could do to make a lot more money. I was interviewed by the New York Times once and she said, well, are you doing this for the money? And I said, if I was motivated by money, I'd be investing in cryptocurrencies. Crypto would be where I'm at. And this was several years ago before crypto went. I got into ancient philosophy because I love ancient philosophy. And I have to remind myself of that because finances, money is a part of it. You have to make sure it doesn't corrupt you in the small little ways if you've already decided not to let it corrupt you in the big ways. And so Casey's point that look, if you're really motivated by money, you wouldn't be a creator. You'd be in the corporate world. That's not who I am. That's not what motivated me. And then when you know what motivates you, when you know why you do what you do, why you get out of bed in the morning, as Marcus Aurelius says, when you do what your nature demands, you can do it purely and authentically and clearly, not corrupted or tempted by these extrinsic or external motivations.
Make it count is such a generic platitude that can be attached to anything because it's such a prominent, make it count as a video I made 10 years ago and it's about pursuing it generically. It is my to a fault how much I romanticize the past, how much I embrace, seek and nurture nostalgia that gives me sort of the motivation for right now.
When I asked Casey about it today, he was a little shy and self-effacing, but I think his Make It Count video is one of the great monuments or demonstrations of the sort of memento mori philosophy from the Stoics. We have one life. How are we going to spend it? Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Now is now. Now is this moment in front of you. How are you going to spend it? You get one life. You could leave life right now. Marcus Aurelius says, let that determine what you do and say and think. That's one part of it. But then in another part, he goes, think of yourself as dead. Now you've come back to life. Now take what's left and live it properly. To me, that idea of touring, going around the world, visiting all these cool places, this sort of make it count thing that he's talking about that video is that idea. Think of yourself as dead. Think of having gotten a cancer scare. Think of a COVID scare. Think of your life flashing before your eyes. Think of the regrets you have, the things you'd want to do, you wish you could have done, the things you kicked yourself for putting off. Well, now you have a second chance, he's saying. How are you going to spend that? And act and decide and live today, now, while you are lucky enough to be alive with that in mind. Don't forget it. Don't take it for granted. Make it count. Memento mori. To me, that's the Stoicism of Casey Neistat, and it's also the Stoicism of Marcus Aurelius. And it's how I try to live my life, and it's how I try to make my decisions, and I hope you do too. the point of making the money, of building the platform, of choosing to do this, what is it? I remember he said, look, the reason to make money is to do more cool work. What has my success afforded me as a writer, as a speaker, the investments I've made? It's that I can fund things like this YouTube channel, I can fund the podcast, I can grow the team. The money, it shouldn't buy you nice cars, although if you can afford it, go for it. The money isn't about affording fancy things or rare artifacts. The point of the money is that it can fund the projects that you've always wanted to do, that you feel that you were put here to do. Look, when I went to my publisher after I wrote Trust Me, I'm Lying, and then I did another marketing book, and I went to them and I said, look, for my next book, I want to write about an obscure school of ancient philosophy. They were not excited. They were not excited at all. They thought it was a terrible idea. They offered me half for my second book, what I got for my first book. The Obstacle is the Way, a book that's now sold well over 1 million copies. It's in like 40 languages. My publisher didn't want. They told me later that they thought that as an idea, they hoped it would be something I would try, get out of my system, and go back to what I was doing. So first off, it was a big swing. It was a big risk. I had to take, again, a significantly less amount of money to do this project. I did it because it was important to me, because I felt like Stoicism really had relevance and I could bring it to a huge audience. But again, this is where Casey's advice comes in. Why do you have the success? What was the point of my corporate success? What was the point of the success of my first book? If it meant that I was not able to do the project that I felt called to do, that I really needed to do. So again, the risk taking isn't just like, oh, I'm going to leverage myself here so I can make more and more money. The risk taking should be, and this is what I've learned from Casey, to do cool projects that you really care about. And this thing that he was here in Austin to do, this documentary he did about the YouTube star David Dobrik and his sort of rise and fall, Casey put millions of dollars of his own money into it because he didn't want other people to have a say, because he wanted control of it, because he thought it was an important story to tell. And that's what the success should afford you. The success should buy you autonomy to make the work that you want to do what you feel like you were put here on this planet to do cool stuff. Otherwise, it's not success. It's a form of slavery, and the Stoics talk about this. Yes, there's literal slavery, but if you're not free to pursue what you want to do, to say what you want to say, to make what you want to make, you are a slave. You're a slave to the system. You're a slave to your success. You're a slave to what other people think. That's not successful at all. Today, I'm wearing my 10,000 long sleeve. It's actually perfect. It's a little cold, but it's got these holes in it, so even though I heated up while I was running, I was still the perfect temperature. And then these are the interval short, which I really like. They have this liner that I dig. I put my car key in this pocket here while I was running, and I've got this vent. Consider this episode sponsored by 10,000, who've been a great supporter of Daily Stoic. I've tried all the different running brands over the years. To me, 10,000 is the best. It's why I wear it all the time. I was introduced to it by my friend Rich Roll when I decided to go on this run with Casey. Of course, that's what I decided to put on. Thanks to 10,000 for sponsoring this video, for making this great stuff, and for sponsoring the Daily Stoic Podcast, which you can also listen to and find out more about 10,000 at 10,000.cc. Do less means do the things that you do better.
It means take on less responsibilities. Like instead of doing 10 things to one, do one thing to 10. And that's antithetical to my approach 10 years ago when my career was starting to come into focus. And the more exploration I did, the more aggressive I was in those pursuits, the greater the return. And now it's the opposite of that. It's the more focused and the more disciplined I am in my pursuits, the greater the return.
A couple of years ago, I wrote this piece that Casey really liked, and we ended up connecting over it. And I know this is a very politically incorrect term. I was saying I have calendar anorexia, meaning like I want nothing going into my calendar. I want to have complete freedom over my day as much as possible. The reality is, as you become successful, as you become good at what you do, is people want you to do a lot of stuff. They'll even pay you a lot of money to do a lot of stuff. And there's just cool opportunities that are coming up all the time. But you have to get really good at saying no, and you have to get really defensive, right? You have to have really clear boundaries around your space to protect that artistic domain in which you do what you do. Casey's really good at that, and he ended up doing a video where he talked about this. Like, you have to be comfortable saying no. You have to be okay hurting people's feelings by saying no. Not only can you not hope to please everyone, but you can't even want to please everyone. I know where my obligations lie. They go to my family, to my immediate community, and to my work. That's what I have to protect, and I have to realize that when I'm saying yes to things, I'm saying no implicitly or otherwise to other things. But when I'm saying no to things, yes, that's hard, and it can feel selfish, but I'm also saying yes to other things that really do matter. And so Casey and I have connected over this. It's an important part of the philosophy that we share, to do good work, to be great at what you do, and to have any semblance of a happy home life, to not get divorced, to not have your kids hate you. You have to protect that space. You have to be willing to say no. You have to put the work first. You have to be able to ignore all the things that are being thrown at you because they don't matter, not nearly as much as people think they matter. And you have to focus on what really does matter. For the Stoics, courage is the first of the cardinal virtues. And it's something I learned from Casey, believe it or not. I don't mean courage of running into a battle or a burning building. There's different kinds of courage. There's also this sort of day-to-day courage of like being yourself, betting on yourself. One of the things I learned from Casey is taking big swings. I'm a college dropout, but Casey's like a high school dropout. Casey bet on himself in a huge way. He came to New York with nothing. I moved to LA with a job. I eased my way into the creative life, and he sort of jumped in with both feet. But a couple different times on projects I've watched Casey do or been involved with in some way, I've watched him take huge swings. He started his company Beam a couple years ago, and he left behind millions of dollars in advertising and YouTube revenue to bet on himself to do this company. And people thought it didn't work, people didn't like it, people were critical of it, but he ended up selling it to CNN for like a huge amount. And it was a big project, but it only happened because he bet on himself. And the vlog, the thing he became so well known for, was a byproduct of doing that. Casey Neistat, as the huge YouTuber that people know him as today, would not exist had he not tried to do this crazy thing that was starting Beam. But then what he was in Austin for, this documentary he did, was premiering at South by Southwest. But Casey invested like millions of dollars of his own money in it. He could have gone out and raised money, or he could have not done it at all because it was prohibitively expensive. But instead, he bet on himself. He took a huge swing. To me, one of the things that I've taken from Casey, but I also take from the Stoics, is that it's not that you believe in yourself. It's that you have evidence in what you're capable of. And you don't care what other people say. You don't care what other people think. You don't care about the odds. You care about whether you know that you have what it takes to do it, and you're willing to take those risks. If you're not scared by what you're doing, you're not taking enough risks. If you never get that like pit in your stomach, like, wow, this is the biggest, scariest thing I've ever done, you're probably not going to put yourself in a position to do something really cool or that hits really big. So you have to take risks. You have to be brave. Fortune favors the bold, as the expression goes. And I think Casey's work is a good example of that. The decisions he's made in his life are a good example of that too. One of the things that's always been remarkable to me about Marcus Aurelius is thinking that Meditations, this book he wrote, which is in Greek, not Latin, he's writing it in a second language, it's so perfectly done. Every phrase is perfect, every metaphor is perfect, every image is perfect, and yet he never expected anyone to see it. He was doing it entirely for himself. The journal was just for him. And I think one of the things that I've admired about Casey's work that's inspired me is that when you look at what people were making as far as vlogs in like 2014, they were not good. And Mark Maron has this great joke about you going on YouTube and being assaulted by lack of talent. And I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of the really influential big people on YouTube kind of half-assing it. You know, here's a video of me eating cereal. It was just not good. And I think what Casey brought to YouTube and continues to bring to YouTube is just like real craftsmanship and professionalism. And I've seen him make these videos, and I see how he thinks about every shot and every cut. Even on this run we went on, he was like, no, you gotta wait for the lighting. And he's just a pro. You have to be a craftsman at what you do, even if the market will reward you not being a craftsman. I think about Steve Jobs and this advice he got from his dad about caring about the back side of the cabinet. That's why, even though the customer won't see it, the inside of an Apple computer is beautiful. People were watching Casey's videos for a lot of different reasons. Maybe most of them didn't appreciate or even understand the full amount of craftsmanship or effort or professionalism that was going into every frame, every cut, every thought, but he did it because he was doing it for him, right? Just as Marcus Aurelius was writing Meditations for him. And when I write my books, of course, I want them to do well. Of course, I do think about the audience, but mostly I think about my own standards. Am I living up to it? I make sure that I'm not cutting corners. I sweat every tiny little detail. You have to care about these things. You have to care about them far more than the market or your audience or your editor or your advertiser or your client. You have to care about it because it's a reflection of who you are. How you do anything is how you do everything. You have to sweat these tiny little details. You have to do them right. Can't phone it in. You have to meet people where they are. One of the things I've realized, like, of course, I'm a writer. I love books. I love the written word. I think books are sacred, holy objects. But I realized that not everyone feels that way. Part of the reason I make YouTube videos, and Casey inspired me to do this and pushed me to do it for years, is that millions of people watch videos. Millions of people listen to podcasts. Millions of people get their information from social media. You have to meet people where they are. You can't be holier than thou. You can't be condescending. You can't be elitist about it. You have to make stuff for people where they they are. When you look at Casey's videos, I was saying like the craftsmanship is indisputable and the care in them is undeniable and they're so well done. But his thumbnails are like just like all the other YouTube videos and they're clickbaity because you have to draw people in. You can't wow the audience if they're indifferent to you, if they never click on it in the first place. You have to grab that attention. It's a battle for sure. And so for me, even the journey to YouTube was something that Casey inspired. He was just telling me how powerful the platform is. I didn't do it for a long time, but I'm so glad that I did. We've reached literally millions and millions of people as a result on it. Seneca, in one of his letters, he says that you should be on the inside different, but on the outside exactly the same as everyone else. I think what he's saying is you got to play the game a little bit, right? You can't expect it to be necessarily this meritocracy. You can't just expect that your work of staggering genius will just be appreciated, will be discovered. And Casey does that. He's done videos where he's flying in a private jet or a fancy plane or goes to some crazy water park. He's done stuff and you can tell he's doing it to reach a new audience, to bring them in, to then see what's really different about his work. That means understanding the platforms. That means producing the amount of work to fully take advantage of those platforms. Also means playing the game on those platforms. Marcus Aurelius says you can't go around expecting Plato's Republic. This is not the golden age of whatever, where Hemingway and Fitzgerald were household names. Again, it's a street fight to get attention. You gotta work for it, man. You gotta put yourself out there. You gotta find out how that attention economy works. But the main thing is you gotta do it. You can't be bigger than it, can't be too good for it. You gotta put yourself out there. And if you don't, and again, that's your choice, you have to understand that you are leaving potential people who could be impacted by your work on the table, and that's a shame. On all of Casey's cameras and his journals and whatever he writes, if found, please do the right thing. And then he puts his phone number. I do myself now, I put it on my journals. It's actually in the front page of the Daily Stoic Journal. It says, if found, please do the right thing. Well, as we were filming this video, he set down his phone and we were walking and then he left his phone and we couldn't find it. We were frantically looking around for it. I wasn't filming because I was looking for the phone. But as it happened, a family found it and they were trying to get in touch with him to give him his phone back. He posted this great tweet about it and he was saying like, look, there's still good people out there. Anyone who's been robbed, had gear, it's very easy to become jaded and cynical about other people, to give up on other people, to lose your faith in people. But there are good people out there. General Mattis has this great line that cynicism is cowardice. Giving up on other people is the easy thing to do. And there are moments in meditations where Marcus Aurelius clearly flirts with that. Even the opening of meditations, he does this. You know, people are going to be jealous and angry and they're going to steal and they're going to do all this stuff. But he says, I can't let them implicate me in the ugliness. They just aren't as informed as I am. And so the idea is you can't give up on people. You can't let them make you cynical. You can't make them lose your faith in humanity. And I love this just little reminder because it reminds me when I find stuff, putting that on my stuff reminds me that when I find other people's stuff, I got to do the right thing. I got to try to get in touch with them. I got to give it back because I want someone to do that for me. Thank you to the people that found his phone. He wouldn't have been able to catch his flight without it. And it's just a great reminder that there are good people out there and that we can't be cynical or give up on people. Maybe 6-7 years ago, I was at Casey's studio in New York City and I walked by and on the shelf, he has like years worth of journals, years of them. And I asked him about it. He's like, oh, I've been doing that from high school. He had like all his journals, more than a decade of journals. Honestly, I was so jealous. I was like, I want to have that. I want to be able to look back at what I was thinking. I want to have practiced that habit. And that is what got me seriously started on the habit of journaling. I'd done it off and on intermittently before, but when I saw like the output, when I saw like what that actually looked like, I was like, I'm going to do that. And you know, there's that expression like the best time to have started something was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, but the second best time is now. And I started it and that was 6 or 7 years ago. And I have a huge stack of my own journals now to show for that, which is, I think, the most Stoic habit. Journaling is Stoicism. Stoicism is journaling. If you didn't start then, like, I'm sorry. If you didn't start when Casey started, I'm sorry, but you can start now and tomorrow you'll have some and 10 years you'll have some, right? You should journal for yourself, right? The day-to-dayness of it is good. You should journal for your future self, that's really good. And you should journal for posterity, for your kids, for your grandkids, but you should do it and you should start now. And Casey taught me that. So I ran 6 before I saw Casey, I ran 5 with Casey, then we walked a mile, and then I ran 2 miles back. So I am exhausted, but that is my final lesson from Casey. One of the things that I think was so inspiring about the vlog he did, like the sheer prolificness of his output, doing one of the highest quality pieces of content on the internet every day for more than a year or a row, 2-3 million people watching each video. I was just inspired by the sheer force of will and determination and fortitude that it takes to do that, which is kind of the track that I've been on. This is more than 10 books in in less than 10 years. And where does that come from? I think the Stoics say it comes from the physical practice, from the training. The run that we just did is the microcosm of the marathon of the work itself. So you have this physical activity, you have this physical domain, the training that you do, the physical domain is actually helping you in the spiritual and the creative domain. Seneca talks about treating the body rigorously so it's not disobedient to the mind. And I think Casey helped me up my game physically. He pushes me. Our mutual friend Rich Roll does the same. When you see people who are just crushing it, putting themselves out there, that are just strong mentally and physically, to me, it inspires me and it reminds me of what it takes to do this work. Casey's inspired me in that way so much. So thank you for watching this video. If you've never checked out my stuff before, you can subscribe to the Daily Stoic YouTube channel, or we do a free email every day about Stoic wisdom. Almost 500,000 people all over the world sign up for it. You can sign up at dailystoic.com/email.